Jane, come in quickly. This is our home where you grew up as a child. Do you remember? Rachel, my birth mother, said excitedly as she pulled my hand after seeing off the swarming reporters. I looked at the familiar neighborhood, memories flooding back. How could I forget? I had lived here for the first 10 years of my life until that man appeared. I subtly pulled my hand away, ignoring her disappointed look, and replied indifferently, I don't remember. It's been too long. I entered the old neighborhood and climbed up to the 4th floor. A man's voice came through. Hello, Jane. So glad to see you. Paul approached with a smile, yet his tone was full of inquiry. Seeing him made my heart tighten, but I remained expressionless as I said, Hello, Mr. Kelly. He immediately relaxed, relief evident in his eyes. Of course, I knew what he was relieved about. This seemingly gentle and approachable stepfather had once abandoned me alone by the riverbank. If not for my sister's arrival, I would have likely been kidnapped. I was the only one who knew the truth. I seemed to have forgotten his deeds due to my young age, and no one else could expose him anymore. Suddenly, a child about 7 or 8 years old burst out from nowhere, grabbed a toy, and threw it at me, glaring at me as he said, Get out of my home. I don't have a sister like you. Startled by the sudden attack, I was slightly dazed. Rachel rushed out, grabbed the child's hand, and scolded, Julian, stop being rude. This is your sister. You can't act like this. Paul also chided gently, Jane, don't be angry. Your brother is still young. Don't mind him. Brother? I couldn't help but sneer, observing how well they had been living these years. They appeared devastated by the loss of a child but were actually quite happy. They had hastily had another child the 2nd year after I disappeared. Indeed, they had longed for a son for a long time. Yet, I wondered why, despite clearly not welcoming me, they had persistently searched for me over the years. I smirked and said, I am his sister, and naturally, I won't hold a grudge, but his lack of manners will lead to hardships in society. Perhaps I, as his sister, should teach him a lesson first. With that, I swiftly pulled my nominal brother aside, grabbed the largest toy, and smashed it against his face. With a cry of pain, Julian was struck, lost his balance like a fat goose, and crashed heavily to the ground, a red mark appearing on his chubby face. Amid everyone's disbelief, Julian looked at me in terror and began to cry at the top of his lungs. Perhaps in Paul's mind, I was still the quiet, introverted 10-year-old girl easily bullied. But I was no longer the person I used to be. Julian! Rachel was the first to react, rushing to hug and comfort Julian. What are you doing? How could you do such a thing? Paul exclaimed angrily. I replied with no remorse, Didn't you say I am his sister? What's wrong with a sister disciplining her disobedient brother?